It's over 5 or 6 times the population of Afghanistan or Iraq. It's a very large country. It should not be treated as a sort of incidental appendage to policies that deal with other smaller countries. Not that the problems in Afghanistan aren't important, or Iraq or Iran, they are important. But in Pakistan, you have the second most populous Muslim country, the 6th most populous country in the world, that already has a democracy, where 97% of the population has already voted against the religious parties, that already has a vibrant media that's debating issues, that's desperate for rule of law, that is a functional state. And so when thinking about what the right policies to pursue in the area should be, those starting points of scale, existing capacity, and quite honestly, a vision for the future that already is quite in line with what I imagine the United States would like the vision to be, should be taken into account. And instead, the approach of looking for a military solution, hoping to compartmentalize Pakistan into, a theater of operations in which Americans can act, and another theater which, is the rest of Pakistan, tends to ignore the reality of how Pakistanis feel and think, and also ignores the reality that there is a great deal of potential for U.S. and Pakistan to work together in a more equal fashion, but also a more effective fashion going forward. So I think we're running close to the end of my time. I'd just like to say a few more things. When you think about what is happening in the Muslim world, very often people tell me that there is this future clash, this impending clash, that Muslims feel one way and Westerners or Christians or whatever feel another way. I'm here to say, in my opinion, that it just simply is not the case. If you go to Pakistan, and many friends of mine from the United States have come, a dozen American friends came to my wedding in Lahore 3 years ago, and when they saw the State Department warning, one friend, a writer from Minnesota, was coming to my wedding, and his wife happened to look at a State Department advisory, which basically said, as an American citizen, if you came to Pakistan and you left the airport, you would be killed. And being 7 months pregnant, Gretchen told Dave, look, I'm not sure this is a great idea for you to go right now. I'd love my unborn child to have a father. And he said, I don't think it's that bad. And he came, and it wasn't that bad. And like the rest of my friends, he hung out in Lahore and had a perfectly good experience and went back. The reason I'm telling you this is not because I think there is no risk to Westerners in Pakistan, or that Americans in Pakistan are completely safe. They're not. But that what we have done, I think, in Pakistan, America, and many other places, is we've lost a sense of perspective. We are confusing small risks with very large ones. In other words, terrorism is an important problem. It's an important problem in Pakistan, where people are being killed by terrorists every day. And it's an important problem in the United States, where there's a potential for people to be killed by terrorists. But in both Pakistan and the United States, terrorism, on average, remains a very, very small cause of death. So in Pakistan, for example, you're much more likely to die of diarrhea, of not having clean drinking water, than at the hands of a terrorist. And in America, you are much more likely to die in an automobile accident than because of terrorists. So what that suggests to me is that obviously terrorism is an important problem. It needs to be dealt with. But we need to maintain a sense of perspective which allows us to say, it is part of the constellation of threats that we face. Most human beings feel similarly about it. They do not want to be killed by terrorists. And the potential to cooperate, to take a long-term view, and to avoid overreacting is there. So I think I'm going to stop there and open it up to questions from you. Thank you for having me.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner, Mohsin Hamid, author of The Reluctant Fundamentalist. We will return to our speaker in just a minute for our traditional City Club questions. Excuse me. We encourage you to formulate questions for our speaker now and remind you that your question should be brief and to the point. Today's forum is the annual Nelson E. Weiss Memorial Forum, which recognizes a very generous contribution from the Weiss family to the Forum Foundation Endowment Fund. Joining us today are several members of the Weiss family, including Mrs. Ann Weiss, wife of the late Nelson Weiss. Will members of the Weiss family please wave and accept our thanks for your support? Today's forum is in collaboration with the Anisfield-Wolf Book Award, which is managed under the auspices of the Cleveland Foundation. We're most grateful for this partnership, which brings these distinguished speakers to our City Club podium. We would like to thank the Cleveland Foundation for the opportunity to recognize the important mission of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Award, Opening Minds. Challenging Minds. I'd like to ask Cindy Schultz, Director of Public Affairs at the Cleveland Foundation, to please stand. Cindy? Thank you. We're pleased to welcome guests at tables hosted by Baker at Hostetler and the Cleveland Foundation. Thank you for joining us today. We're also pleased to welcome to our forum today students who are here as part of the City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a memorial contribution to the Forum Foundation Endowment in memory of William and Robert Evans. With us today are students from the Ginn Academy. Would our student guests please stand and be recognized? Now we'd like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We would welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today are City Club Operations Assistant Maria Dabuta and Outreach Coordinator Deborah Agosti. Now, first question, please.
Yes, Mr. Hamid, as you had mentioned, there was a recent turnover in the Pakistani government, and the new leader is the widower of Benazir Bhutto, who, to my mind, was a very, very popular Democratic, I believe, leader. I don't quite recall all of her policies, but she seemed to be very, very popular. And my question is, I think very importantly, is how do we what's the best and fastest way us to become fast friends and bosom buddies to Pakistan?
You know, it's in some ways, it's probably easier than it looks. If you look at U.S. policy, for example, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and leaving aside the loss of life, etc., if you look at Iraq, you know, U.S. policy is costing the U.S. something like $300 million a day in a country with a population of some 30 million. In Pakistan, the U.S. has spent $1 or $2 billion a year on a combination of military and civilian aid with a country of 160, 170 million population. And in terms of the outcome, strikes me as much more stable in Pakistan than in Iraq. Now, what that suggests is that there are ways that are not military necessarily, to buttress a country and to align your interests. Now, in Pakistan, what many people talk about is, you know, there's, of course, suspicion about aid. More access to U.S. markets would certainly align the countries more closely. But I would say there's probably two things, without getting to sort of policy wonkish, you know, detail about what should be done. There are two things. The first one is, like any friendship, a degree of mutual respect is called for. And that mutual respect means sitting down together and saying, you know, what are your concerns? What are our concerns? Let's figure out ways for both of us to get as many of those concerns addressed as possible. As opposed to, we have some concerns, they must be addressed, and if you don't address them, here are the following consequences. Because the U.S. relationship with Pakistan is halfway between an alliance and an adversarial relationship. What might be much better is actually a relationship that is a perhaps less fervent friendship, but still a respectful, friendly relationship. And what that would mean is for the United States to understand that Pakistanis have many of the same concerns as Americans do. They don't want to see parts of their country outside the control of the state. They don't want to see terrorists running rampant and killing people.